We are live, and it is the Midday Show. And a very good afternoon to you, and welcome along, and other such pleasantries. And I have got a fantastic guest for you lined up today. She's been on before. We keep inviting her back because we really like her. I'm Neil. Welcome to the show. How is everyone today? Are we all well? I had a hell of a busy day yesterday. I did a radio show in the morning, then an afternoon gig for a kind of office party on a Tuesday afternoon. I know, go figure. And then I was teaching my girlfriend's daughter O-level maths showing my age, GCSE maths, and she got the exam today, so I hope to God she passes and I didn't mess up my Venn diagrams. And then had a comedy gig last night, so busy me. But anyway, that's my problem, not yours. Let's welcome our guest onto the show. She's been on before, and we love having her on. It's only Lucy Cavendish, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
It's me, I'm back.
And a welcome back.
Get rid of me, Neil. You can't get rid of me.
You keep turning up like a good penny, if you like.
Oh, you're so kind. Yeah, I love it. So I'm back again. Here I am.
Welcome. Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Lucy Cavendish. I'm an author of this book. I'm going to give a massive plug, How to Have Extraordinary Relationships. And I was talking about this actually, well, not about the book. I've been on the Jeremy Vine show now on Radio 2 a few times, talking about various things. He very kindly keeps talking about the book. I'm a therapist. I do quite a lot of writing. I do talking. I do webinars. That's the sort of stuff that I do. And I see a lot of clients and a lot of individuals. And I'm now running groups about things like the journey into the self. That's a big topic. And also the other topic that's come up a lot on the back of things like the P. Diddy trial is coercive control. So I talk a lot about not jolly, but I do a lot of work with people on coercive control. Yes.
Oh my goodness me, so much to unpack there. So, well, it sounds like you keep yourself busy as well, should we to say the least.
Yes, and on my podcast, which is called How to Have Extraordinary Relationships.
Well, what I like about the podcast is it's about all kinds of relationships. It's the relationship with yourself. It's the relationship you might have with your mum. It's the relationship you have in a romantic relationship. It's all aspects of relationship. I find a lot of relationship podcasts just about one strand.
Genre. I mean, and people go off on all sorts of tangents, and that's the point of it. It's like the podcast Diary of a CEO. It's not a diary. It's not necessarily about a CEO. I mean, it's a title. But I mean, coming up, we've got Sarah Vine, who's in the press a lot now, who was married to Michael Gove, talking about not just about how not to be a political wife, which is the title of the book, but actually about her childhood and how she's ended up doing what she wants, how she is now. It's a fascinating, vulnerable podcast.
Well, it is. Well, I'll tell you what, before we go any further,
yes.
I've got the trailer for season 3.
Oh.
Can I play it?
Yes, please do.
All right. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to season 3 of How to Have Extraordinary Relationships with me, Lucy Cavendish. I'm your host, I'm an author and I'm a therapist. And I have a book, How to Have Extraordinary Relationships, and a website, Lucy Cavendish Love Coach. But here in season 3, we are delving deep into people and their psyche and what makes them tick and what makes them hurt and how they've awakened and evolved. And I have Sarah Vine, the Daily Mail columnist and author of How Not to Be a Political Wife, which is causing a huge stir, talking about being called Lady Macbeth and how her childhood really affected where she is today. I've also got the novelist and Seba talking about the orchestra of the Holocaust. Susan Saunders talking about our relationship with the brain. And the same, we've got Dr. Alka Patel helping us age and talking about her relationship with aging and burnout. Santa Montefiore, the novelist, is talking about her spiritual experiences and how she's had them since she was very young and how she's visited by her sister, Tara Palmer Tompkinson, who died quite a while ago. I've got the wonderful stylist an artist, Barbara Fusafira, talking about growing up in Italy, being of Nigerian descent and being here in London. Jenny Young, who's got a PhD in rhetorical patterning, who's the founder of Burned Haystack dating method that's now got nearly 200,000 people on the group on Facebook. She's talking very honestly about that method and what brought her to that. I've got Erica Storm talking about kink and sex and being a 5'11" person of colour, and how as a child she was constantly told to go and stand at the back, and how now she stands at the front in every way. In Margot Couples Dynamo, Dr. Kalanit Ben-Ari, she's on Israel Married at First Sight. She goes around rescuing everyone's relationships, talking about connection, but also talking about how where we are in our family in terms of siblings affects how we are in our relationships in later life. And also Hotel Babylon, the novelist Imogen Edward Jones, talking about her life and love and how she survived all these years. All of us survived all these years. I hope there's something in that for everybody, and I look forward to you all listening to it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We get the numbers up, get everything out there. I really hope it resonates with you all and you let everyone know all about it. Thank you so much for listening. It's going to be a brilliant season.
Yay!
It's pretty varied, isn't it?
It's very
varied. Just that short trailer alone, there's enough to talk about there for years.
Yes.
I see the Sarah Vine books come out, and some people have read it, and I've seen some reviews on it in the Daily Mail.
It's not actually out till next week, but people.
Is it not? I've definitely read a review of someone who's read it. Maybe they got a pre-release or something. I don't know. And it's going to ruffle some feathers, isn't it? It's. Yes, I mean, your little black book is better than Russ Kane's, and that is saying something.
Yes, it is going to ruffle some feathers, and I think Sarah's been very honest. But I mean, what she talks about in the podcast, and with my journalist hat on, I really get it. Is nothing's off limits. There's a sort of, I was thinking about this. There's a sort of something that happens, and I think it happens for women more than men, where we kind of sit down and write it all. It's almost like we don't have a kind of filter. And I think for Sarah, you know, she's written this incredible book, and nothing, I mean, it's so open, it's very vulnerable. And of course, if you write like that and you expose, in inverted commas, a lot of stuff that's happened, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff she hasn't exposed, you're going to get a lot of kickback. And I think that's difficult, but I think that actually goes with the territory. It's a bit like the kind of Meghan and Harry thing of saying, well, let's say they said we want privacy. I don't know if they actually did say that, and then saying, why have we got no privacy? I mean, and Sarah knows that. She would say, well, I've written a warts and all book, so I've got to be prepared for the fact that there are people in it who won't like it. Specifically, I think the Camerons, David and Samantha Cameron.
I mean, I think if you're going to be in politics in any way, you're going to be a target, aren't you?
Yes.
It's as simple as
lots of people. I mean, I stopped being a journalist like that and became a therapist because I couldn't cope. I just actually, you know, when the comments started at the bottom of articles, and so the general public were able to comment on stuff, and I'd written things with a good heart. I just couldn't deal with it, and I thought,
people can get really nasty if you dare to disagree with them. I mean, I remember working at Capital, I had a couple of death threats. I was only playing records by Boyzone. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that was maybe they didn't like Boyzone.
But it's complicated, isn't it? I mean, I then thought I can't really carry on doing this. It was too overwhelming for me. I just thought I don't want to be scrutinized in that level. So I came off all social media. I just thought I'm done, and retrained as a therapist, and that's really how it started. But I just couldn't deal with it. I don't, you know, I don't have the hide of an elephant. But I think lots of people don't. But I think there's a compulsion. It's you know, it's not just about earning money. There's a sort of compulsion to write this stuff. So I think, you know, maybe for Sarah, it's been very cathartic to write this book. But
well, I think it would have been, and I think the people that don't want to turn nasty on social media will really appreciate the vulnerability and honesty of it. Anyone can write a book with a bit of scandal, you know what I mean? That's not that hard to do. But to be really, really vulnerable and do it from that point of view, that perspective, I think it's a great thing to do, whether you agree with it or not. But you know what I mean? I think the general public, no, let's say a segment of the general public are sick of smoke and mirrors.
Yes,
they want it raw, they want it real.
Yeah, and also when I'm doing the podcast, I mean, people can go wherever they want. The thing I love about podcasts is it's not a journalism piece. You're not trying to kind of, in inverted commas, trick people up. And in a way, I stopped being a journalist because I was going and doing interviews, and I'd get a call from the editor, whoever's editing the piece, saying, "Oh, could you get them to say this line?" So could you say, "I was an alcoholic, but now I'm clean"? You know, I mean, and it was awful. I ended up feeling I was there on very disingenuous reasons, or trying to catch people out and say stuff. And the thing about podcasts is that's not what you're doing. You know, you're either giving people information about history or advertising, or you're just talking to people. And that's what I like to do. And what I think because I've got my training as well as a therapist, and because, you know, journalists and therapists are interested in people. You know, my interest is in people. What makes you tick? Why do you do what you do? Where do you think that's come from? Where is that taking you to? So the podcasts go in all sorts of different directions. And I learn a lot doing it. I learn a lot.
So do I. I mean, I edit it for you, and I learn an awful lot. I feel enriched by listening, you know, just listening and editing, and fascinating people from so many walks of life. I mean, I do. What I recognise in the sequence there is Erica Storm. She's been on this show.
Oh, has she?
She has.
I met her about 3 weeks ago. I was out. I mean, I never go to the Groucho Club, so I'm not name dropping, but a friend of mine, BB Lynch, who's been on the podcast, season 2, is running some talks. And she was doing a talk with someone about called Unapologetic. And I was sitting just until 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning. It was like mad time to do a talk. And this incredible woman walks in the room. You know, I've never seen anything like it. She's 6 foot tall. She's clad in leather. She's got this incredible brassiere on. Her booby doos are out. She's got an afro up here. She's stunning. But I was just like, I just want to be your friend, like now.
She seems lovely. But I remember Russ saying, "Neil, we've got a dominatrix on the show." And that pricked my ears up. I'm like, oh, okay. And she was lovely, but she doesn't so much do that anymore, does she? She's more. I
know she does. I mean,
oh, does she?
Well, her thing is about kink and about becoming sexually free and sexually.
I did actually also see her in a Channel 4 documentary when she was caning a man's bum. I did see that as well.
Okay. I think she does a lot more therapy now.
Right.
That's interesting, isn't it? So she's going to be talking about all that. And Later Data, my original award-winning podcast, which only had something like 10 episodes, and then it got, let go. Don't ask me why it did. I talked to someone called Madam Sherry, who's like 70, and she's a dominatrix.
Okay.
And I thought it sounded quite interesting, really. You know, you dress up and whip people, and then you get paid. It's like, wow. Huh. Or they just say, "Can I clean your house?" I was like, this sounds idyllic.
Pretty much. Pretty much. But she seemed like a wonderful character. I really enjoyed talking to her.
Great. She's great. I mean, she, again, when she told me about she was tall. She's tall now. She was tall as a child. But that sense of being told endlessly, "Oh, stand at the back." That's a formative thing, isn't it? There's a school photo. There you are at the front. And you're told stand at the back. Yeah. And you're already maybe in a minority in your school, so, you're already being othered, aren't you? You tall person stand at the back. You can't be at the front with the small little cutie girls. You're at the back with the boys. So she's going to be talking about that.
And she uses kink as a form of finding sexual freedom.
Yeah. I mean, she asked me what mine was, and I was really boring and dull and couldn't really think of one. So there we go. So either I'm really free or I'm really repressed, one or the other.
Well, you're English, so probably really repressed, like most.
Well,
of
I'm
us.
English, exactly. So, yes, I think, and I think it's important work too. And I really want to talk about this, and we're talking about how people can expand their sense of play and sex and freedom. And I do a lot of work with that with couples, where we've got trust and trust involved.
I read a really interesting article once, and it was about people who are in BDSM relationships.
Yes.
And it said statistically they'd done a study on it. I don't quite know why it was commissioned or who commissioned it, but it was. And it was a sciencey article. I wasn't reading dirty books. It literally was a sciencey thing. Or it might have been a book on relationships and sex or something like that. But it was a statistic. And they said these people in these kind of, sub-dom relationships, whatever they call it, have better relationships than the majority of the rest of other people. I thought, why? But I suppose if you're doing stuff like that, you need that level of communication and consent.
I think that's right.
You know what I mean? So those couples tend to be an awful lot more bonded as a couple and closer. So when I thought about it that way, it made sense. But then it started to make me think that most other adults maybe have never had this conversation. Maybe they've never sat down with the person they've been married to for 20 years and said, hey, what floats your boat? What do you like? You know what I mean? And
that's exactly right.
Is this what you find in your therapy room?
Absolutely. And it's awkward because, like you say, we're English, we're British, not everybody. But I mean, I'm 58, so I'm seeing people of sort of my age group, sometimes younger ones. They're very different. But
come on. There was even a film made by British people called No Sex Please, We're British. It was Ronnie Corbett, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, so you've got couples saying, well, we think we've got to split up or blah, blah, blah. And they it's almost like they've got to a place where they can't see there's an extra bit or many extra bits. They've become, because that all feels a bit like, oh my God. But once they relax a bit and you say, well, maybe you'd like to go and share your sexual fantasies with each other. Once they've got over that, I'd rather, because it's not, I want to share it with someone else. It's because within us there may be shame. Within us there may be, I can't tell someone that I want them to, dress up in a nurse's costume, which would be quite mild, really.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty tame.
Pretty tame, or go to the pub with nothing underneath a raincoat on, or meet up in a bar in a hotel in London and pretend we don't know each other.
Yeah, no, average Friday night for me personally, but no.
Well, that's why you're so happy with your partner now. So, but I mean, it's sort of those territories. Now, there might be difficult ones, and I'm not a sex therapist, but I mean, bringing another person into that arena, I think is difficult for people, but not often. So once you start asking people to feel safe enough to open up to a different,
and this is it. It's a lack of safety, isn't it? And it's a lack of, and I picked up on a word there, shame.
Yeah, shame's huge. Coercive control. There's so much shame in coercive control.
I want to talk about that a lot more in a minute because we did a special podcast episode on coercive control.
We did.
So I'm looking forward to meeting Erica again when I edited her on the podcast. Tell us about some of the other guests you've got on season 3. Then we'll talk about coercive control.
Yeah, so I've got Dr. Alka Patel, who's all over the media.
She was amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. So you see, I don't want to live forever. I really don't. So people say that, well, you could do this, you could live forever. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. I don't want to live forever. That'd be terrible. But I'm probably in a minority. I'm quite happy to think, I wonder what's on the other side, But she talks about longevity and health. So she is, I don't know how old she looks amazing. Her biological age is 20.
It's unbelievable.
She must be in her 50s, and her biological age is 20.
I remember when that bomb dropped on the podcast, I had to rewind it. I think I swore at the screen. I'm like, no way.
Yes.
And you see this woman, and she looks radiant.
Yes, she's.
And I mean radiant. She's obviously an Asian woman, beautiful Asian lady, and the biological age, in other words, the internal age, the age of all the organs, what's up, 20.
Exactly.
20.
She will be, she's talking about biohacks and it's all stuff we know, but we all know, we should be all doing yoga and pranayama and eating well and not drinking and not smoking. And I can't remember what else we're supposed to be doing. But what's interesting in the podcast is she talks about a couple and the man's off eating donuts and swilling beer. And the woman is like many women, and I don't wish to be, sexist about this, but, doing yoga and going to her breathwork sessions and having chia seeds and overnight oats and eating organic fish. And she ends up very ill and the man doesn't.
Interesting.
So she's looking at that. She's looking at how, she obviously has clients that takes her through privately, but what's that about? And I think there's all sorts of stuff that's involved in that, which I think it comes from a therapeutic area, which is around childhood stress, adverse childhood experiences, how we cope with things. I mean, I know friends of mine who are on a wellness journey, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. My friend's on a wellness journey, and she's got a blackboard full of 5 o'clock. It's
much as I agree with, we all need healthy habits and healthy disciplines to keep us healthy. I'm also, but something can be bad for the body and good for the soul. It can be, and I'm a believer in a little bit, or maybe a lot of what you fancy does you good.
Well, also, if you go on this thing, so let's say you don't get up at 5 because you're knackered, and then you get up at 6, right? Then you hate yourself because you haven't got up at 5, and then you're stressed. So, so a lot of people I know on the wellness journey are more exhausted. They look terrible, and they're less happy than the rest of us that are just kind of.
But isn't there two categories of people? Yeah, it's like that joke, isn't it? It's I gave up alcohol, drugs, and loose women. I didn't live any longer. It just bloody felt like it. It's that. It's that, isn't it? But there is a group of people that look. They have maybe some simple practices, and there's a glow. There's a radiance.
Yes, that's right.
And I'm sure it's spiritual, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. Because I've met some really lovely spiritual people like that. But there's just this glow. But they're not over the top. They're not health freaks, if you know what I mean. They just, I don't know. But yes, that blackboard, and you got to do this then and that then and that then. I've tried doing that. It lasted about half a day.
Right, yeah. Why? What happened? You just thought this is very dull and I don't like it.
It was boring and it was difficult.
Boring.
But
you've got to do things that are difficult sometimes. That's good for you to do things that are difficult. You've got to have a bit of time.
I appreciate that, but not all the time. Not a whole lifetime of, let's say, struggling against having a good time. If you know what I mean.
When I was in Greece, because as you know, I spend time in Greece and I love it. A friend of mine came out, I won't name her. We had a great time. So I get very overexcited because I'm a bit like a Tigger. I kind of go, woohoo, that's fun, isn't it? So on a Saturday night, we went out for dinner, and then we did this, then we did that. And then I said, let's go to the cocktail bar. It's a very small island. We went to the cocktail bar. We had a couple of cocktails. We were a bit bevied. The DJ puts on some music. There's lots of people.
DJ put the Macarena on.
Put the Macarena on. It's a small little bar of the dance floor. We're off dancing. We're having lots of fun. Then we're having another cocktail. Then it gets to kind of 4 a.m. This is very normal for Greece, right? So then we go back to the house and have some tea, and it's really great. And the sun's beginning to peak up. So lovely. And then we go to bed. We're on holiday. We've got nothing else to do the next day. We wake up whenever, feeling a bit oof, but it's fine. We've got nothing else to do. So we swim in the sea and we have some fresh fish and some beautiful vegetables. But she spent the whole day saying, oh my God, my watch, my Whoops told me that I'm, my energy's low. I'm like, of course your energy's low. We drank, we probably smoked cigarettes. We partied until 4 a.m. But instead of sort of focusing on, oh my God, I feel so bad. I'm like, well, what did you think your Whoop watch was going to say? Just stop looking at it. But you're going to feel tired because we went out last night. We stayed up late, but didn't we have a wonderful time? Wasn't it fun dancing like lunatics? Wasn't it great to see the sun come up?
And that's important as well. This is what I mean by bad for the body, but maybe good for the soul. And there's got to be a middle ground where we can feel that good. So my girlfriend's daughter's just come in. She's done a maths GCSE today.
Don't even talk about it. I hope it went well.
Yeah. How did it go? She doesn't know.
Oh, bless.
It was a maths GCSE update. Yeah, bad for the body, good for the soul. And I know exactly. There's got to be just a way that, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just an easier way than all these protocols and having your watch tell you off. My smartwatch grasped me up once.
I don't have any of that. I know I can check in my own body. I know how I'm feeling. I'm not an idiot. I know if I'm feeling good. I know if my energy is low.
That's it. So that's it. I think you just hit on it. I'll just finish this story quickly, then. I want to come back to that. Literally, someone said to me, "You got up in the night and ate, didn't you?" And I went, "No." I said, "Yep. Seen your phone. I can tell there was a spike there when you got out of bed." So I'm like, "What?" So are those outer things like the blackboard and the watch just sort of replacements for not being able to relatively easily, a lack of self-knowledge, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have one, so I don't know. I'm not an elite athlete, so maybe if you're an athlete or something like that, you're getting a lot out of it, and maybe, you know, it's like a little crutch. Maybe it's quite good, but I think if it's beating you up, I mean, if you're staying out late and you're drinking alcoholic beverages and you are having a couple of rollies because you're drunk and you quite fancy them and you don't usually have rollies, you're not going to wake up the next day with a clear head because we're in our 50s. You're not going to wake up the next day going ping, but you've had a wonderful time. You've danced, you've talked, you've laughed, you've talked to strangers that you wouldn't talk to before. You've hung out, you've got in the sea at dawn, you whatever. How, you know, that's a magical thing to do. That's a wonderful thing to do. So I don't need a watch to tell me you're a bit low energy.
No.
I mean, that's not rocket science. So, and I think it can get a bit. I think it can be that we stop trusting ourselves. So instead of thinking, well, how do I feel or what do I want to do, we're constantly asking a gadget. You know, should I? You know, how?
But
am
it
I?
comes down to self-knowledge. You talked earlier about the journey into the self, which is another aspect of relationship, isn't it? The self, capital S, the spiritual journey, hero's journey, if you like. And there's an element of that in another one of your episodes, which is Santa Montefiore.
Yes, so I was really taken aback by
this
that.
was pretty much, I did not expect that when I was ST. I was like, whoa, Mulder and Scully, here we go.
Yes, so I've known Santa for years. So Santa started life as Santa Palmer Tompkinson. So her parents are Patty and Charles Palmer Tompkinson, who are very well known for being friends of Prince Charles. And her father was the person, if anyone remembers, that was in that very bad skiing avalanche all those years ago with Charles. And her sister was Tara Palmer Tompkinson. So some people might remember Tara. I knew Tara a little bit because I interviewed her for newspapers and I really liked her.
Was she the it girl? Is that right?
She was an it girl. She was on the first I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and she fell in love with someone inappropriate. I can't remember who it was. It's not Shane Warne, but I can't remember who it was. And sort of back then, no one really knew what was going on. There was around cameras, and she was saying, "But I love you, and I want to be with you." And he had a girlfriend. The whole psychodrama was played out in the Australian jungle, and she had a lot of addiction issues. And then so Santa, who married Simon Sebag Montefiore, the historian who's written about Stalin and lots of different things, she's sort of the sensible one, and Tara was the crazy one. And Tara died quite a long time ago now.
Yeah,
she had a lot of struggles with addiction. And Santa writes these wonderful novels. She's written out, I think, 17, maybe even more, and they sell really well. She's a beautiful person. She's really wonderful. But when we were talking about the podcast, I thought she was going to talk about her writing. But what she actually talked about was the fact that since she's been very, very, very young, she has had a relationship with what can only be described, I think, as with the spirit world. Would you describe it like that? Yeah. So as a child and as an adult, she's had many, many, many out-of-body experiences. I mean, I remember when I was a kid seeing a J.M. Barrie, I think, drawing. Maybe it wasn't he, the drawing of Peter Pan and Wendy, and they're flying through the sky, and London's below them, and there's all the stars. So when she talked of it, it made me think of that picture that she leaves her body and she goes on journeys. And she had this as a child, and it never occurred to her that this was quite odd, that other people didn't do. What's it called? Is it called spirit flying or something?
Astral projection.
Astral projection. I don't know if anyone listening has done astral projection. And she had all these experiences. And then as she got older, they sort of stopped, and then they started becoming quite frightening because it felt so strange and odd to be having these experiences. But the upshot of all this, she talks a lot about that on the podcast, but she also talks about how she sees Tara all the time. Tara comes and sits on the end of her bed.
Wow.
You know, not just sort of in her mind, because of course we want to see dead loved ones again. Of course we do. I mean, how wonderful. My sister died.
Or at least know they're okay.
Well, everyone tells you they're okay. There's not one clairvoyant that says, oh, I've got your sister and she's in hell and she's in agony. No, because they're not there to tell you that. But so I would love, my sister died very unexpectedly nearly 3 years ago now, tragically. And I would love to see her again, right? I would love to see her again. But I don't have that. Does she exist in my being, in my head? Yes, of course. And she will always.
Have you ever been to a clairvoyant or a medium?
Yes, I have. But they always tell you the same thing, which is she's fine and she wants you to be happy. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. But Santa sees Tara, literally sees her. She comes and sits on her bed.
Wow.
And talks to her. And I do. It feels very real. I don't just think it's a figment of imagination.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think the closest I've ever had to that, I would dream that I could fly. And I was a big golden orb of energy.
Yes.
And I was flying by the power of thought over. It looked like the beginning of EastEnders, like down the Thames. And I was flying over all the bridges and all that sort of thing. And sometimes I dream that I can fly up into space. I can think myself off the ground and then go, like in Star Trek, if you're a Trekkie and they go warp and all the stars form into lines because it's so fast.
Oh, yes.
Like that. And I think myself out into space. So that's the closest I've had to it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if it's astral projection, if it's my soul, whatever. It feels bloody great. It's really good. I love those dreams. I wish I had more of them.
There's lots of programs that can help you do it. I did try one through Mind Valley, and I don't know. There's obviously some chakra that isn't really that open, because although I feel that it is, I found it very, very difficult. And I've never had that. I've never seen a ghost. I'd love to see a ghost.
I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're quite nice. But I went around West Wickham Caves that are supposed to be very haunted, and lots of ghost hunters go there, and they say that they see orbs. They don't go woo like that. I'm the Duke of Rutland or whatever. They're orbs.
Yeah, maybe it's just like seeing a parallel. I don't want to go all quantum, but like perhaps a parallel dimension, because they've got to all exist at once in the universe. There's only the now, right? So everything's got to exist at once now, and it's just a question of perception. And human beings are perhaps, here we go, spiritual talk, most of us maybe are vibrating at such a level where we don't have access to that. But maybe people like Santa has a much higher vibration.
I think that's probably exactly it. And
it's probably something like that. You remember Nick Bro, who you interviewed in season 1?
Yes.
He had a course on remote viewing, which was really interesting.
Right.
I think that's still available, actually. So maybe check it out. I don't know. But yeah, he's a really interesting guy. Well, Leslie Ian Jones says, I think what you dream sometimes see or feel is connected to your ancestors within you. That's a really interesting.
It is interesting. So Jung says, Jung says lots of things about dreams, which is essentially they're all basically aspects of ourselves. That's what he says. So everything we dream is basically us. It's about
my girlfriend has these epic dreams. She will these epic. She wakes up exhausted, and then she'll wake up in the middle of the night. Oh my God, I've just been to, I don't know, off the top of my head, ancient France, where I was fighting in a battle and my mum was there, or something like that.
Oh,
and then she'll fall asleep and go straight back into the dream where she was and continue the dream. I don't know how she does that.
No, neither do I. And that's what Leslie is saying, is being connected to our ancestors, that they come through to us in a dream state.
And if I'm involved in the dream and I do something she doesn't want me to do, she wakes up pissed off with me Now, can you sort that out?
I've done that with my ex-husband.
I need some help with a relationship coach. I'm completely innocent here. I didn't do it.
No, I've had that. Although actually, I think my dreams were trying to tell me something. I wake up and go, "My God, I can't believe you did that." And he was like, "I didn't do anything." It turned out actually he did quite a lot of stuff, but never mind. Maybe that was my ancestors saying to me, "Wake up, hello."
Okay. Who would know? Who would know? Well, maybe it's her ancestors telling her to wake up and dump me. I don't know.
No, I hope not. That's not the case.
I hope
So
not.
we've got Santa. Who else have we got? We've got
Yes,
Anne
tell us more.
Got Anne Seba, the writer, who is a she does projects. She does incredibly beautiful, amazing, well-researched books. So this is about the orchestra of Auschwitz. So she's talked to a lot of people about this orchestra that was created and how many people were kept alive. And she's talked to survivors of the women it was all women that played in the orchestra.
This was extraordinary.
Yeah, and also Anne talks, Anne was married to her husband, Mark, who set up Net-a-Porter. They were very happily married. She talks about, I think they had quite a traditional marriage, she wrote and did that, but she had the children, he did Net-a-Porter, and they had a beautiful life in a house in Greece. And and they're very, very happy. I met them many, many times. They're beautifully connected, happily married couple. They really were. And they go to Greece. He's just retired, and she goes in the garden to get something, and she calls out to him, "Oh, do you want some strawberries or whatever?" No answer. And she says she just knew. She just knew, and ran back in. He'd had a huge heart attack and died.
Oh, dear.
They're in their 60s. So she also talks about what happens when the future you thought you were going to have disappears like that.
I suppose she's also a testament that even in the most extreme circumstances, there is life after that.
Yeah.
And that there's someone watching this who that comment will relate to very strongly. I'm not going to name them out of respect, but I'll leave that there. But it just shows that there's always life. There's always something to live for, shall we say?
Yes, and I think that also links in with the orchestra of Auschwitz, which is how did these people survive, and how did some people survive? They're talking about kind of not resilience, that wouldn't be fair, but she talks a lot about what she discovered writing that book and how life is for her now. So, people are very generous with what they tell me. I'm amazed at how generous people are with what
people are so open. I think you're a very natural. You're a natural, darling. You're a natural interviewer, and you know what I mean. And I think people want to be honest and open. People, like I said, are scared of wearing the mask and the smoke and mirrors and all that sort of stuff. They want to be authentic. They want to be real.
Yes, they do. They do. Yeah, that would explain, yes, from Brian, why after death we're balls of light. Yes.
Well, it would also say that death doesn't exist. It's just energy in a different form, right?
Yes, but what I'm interested in, so when my father died a long time ago, he died in 2000 because he was an alcoholic, actually. So anyway, his body just gave up. But I was there when he died and holding him, and, because that's how we are in my family. And I think it's better in our culture to have that if we can, to help someone pass from one place to another, wherever. And he took his last breath and he went, and I literally saw this stuff. I can't, it wasn't smoke. It just left and passed and went.
Wow.
Yes. And it was very soothing because his body just felt like a husk. It was like when a dragonfly leaves its sort of larvae stage,
Yeah, I remember when my dad died. It was New Year's Eve 2014, and 10 in the morning I had a dad, and by 4 in the afternoon I didn't. That wasn't a great day, but when I saw him dead at the hospital, it wasn't him.
No,
it was an empty shell, and what was him was whatever was animating him.
Well, I think a lot of people would say that is very obviously breath. It's our breath, which is why we do a lot of breath work now, our pranayama.
Well, they say the breath is the closest connection to your soul or spirit.
So that has to be it, because it literally was. And in a way, it was fine. I was like, oh, well, that's the body. That's just the casing he has been in. And whatever that was has gone to wherever it goes. And I was, I was okay with that. Also, actually, I don't think he really liked being alive very much. He was in a long process of self-destruction. And so when people are like, isn't that sad? I was like, well, yeah, but I don't think he wasn't really having a great time.
No, if there's no quality of life, I mean,
well, there was quality of life available, but he was an alcoholic, a very serious alcoholic. And if you're, I mean, this is how I feel. Okay, it's how I feel. It's how everyone else feels. But he, over a period of time, there's a lot of opportunities for him to dry out. We took him to lots of clinics. The fact that he continued to drink in the end is a long, slow form of suicide. Actually,
I've had 2 friends that have suffered from alcoholism. One I still have, the other I don't. And there's drinking and drinking. We've talked about partying on the Greek beach, holiday drinking. Yeah. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. No. But when you get phone calls from him at 3 a.m. and you can hear the screw top unscrewing and the glass filling, once it's really got you, it's tough. It's tough, and I won't want to see anyone. I like a drink as much as anyone, but I'm not that. Most of us aren't. Brian's given us permission to post this. Ray is still making herself known. Brian lost his wife recently. I actually did their wedding, and she died very soon after that. It was tragic.
Oh, Brian, I'm so sorry.
And he's a wonderful guy. He set up this thing called Red Alert on Facebook, which is basically a bulletin board with 30,000 pairs of eyes, because people join it. It was started as a local thing, just in the sense that 10 pairs of eyes are better than one, and it went national, and it's all run on a grassroots level. If you type in Red Alert into Facebook, you'll see it, and that's his organisation. It's brilliant. And Ray is still here, making herself known in different ways, mainly turning things on and off.
Is she?
All the best to you, Brian. My thoughts are always with you, my friend. Shall we just talk a bit more about who else is on the podcast? I want to talk about coercive control in a bit as well.
Okay, who else have I got on the podcast? You have to remind me. I've got Susan.
Pleasure. Well, the brain lady,
Susan Saunders.
Yes.
So she's amazing. She's on Instagram and Facebook, and she is again talking about aging and how to age well in terms of our brain. So she is talking about how to have a good relationship with our brain. And what she does is she does lots of things. What I really love about Susan is that she's very knowledgeable. She's self-taught, and she spends a lot of time looking at research and talking to professors. So she's amalgamating all the information to give to us. So she'll say top 10 cruciferous vegetables to get, top exercises to do. So because for the rest of us, sort of wading through that massive charge of information is very difficult. So her mother died of Alzheimer's. I think she's talking about markers for Alzheimer's and dementia. She has some of them genetically. So she started looking at how she could support her brain and fall in love with the brain so that she didn't end up where her mother did relatively young. So there's lots of information around that. And that's a lot to do with diet. That's a lot to do with stress. That's a lot to do.
I think also what was I going to say? You talk about markers for dementia, genetic. I think we've also moved past, which is good news, the belief in genetic determinism, meaning that if it's in your family, you're almost certainly going to get it.
Yes,
there's now a science called epigenetics, isn't there, which is pioneered by people like Bruce Lipton, who wrote the book, The Biology of Belief. And that's where genes are. Yes, there are genes, but they can be turned on and off, and the environment. Or our perceived environment, I should say, can depend whether they're turned on or off. So someone that perceives the environment as friendly and welcoming is a lot likely to have the good genes turned on than someone that perceives their environment as consistently hostile.
Is what Albert Einstein said? It wasn't Einstein that said the most fundamental thing you need to know is, do you believe that the universe is for you or against you? Are we
a friendly universe.
Yeah, are we in a friendly universe or are we not?
Or worse to that effect, yeah.
So yesterday, because I've gone on dating apps, don't even go there. yesterday I had a conversation with a man who, when you think I probably shouldn't, but then you think, well, you never know, because we live in hope. I thought, well, you never know. I mean, so we had a chat, and the second question he asked me is, are you an atheist? And I said, no, I'm not an atheist. And he said, well, that's a stupid position to hold. So that's the end of that conversation.
So wait a minute, he called you stupid on his second question.
Yeah. So that's the end of that. But what's interesting is I think we all believe different things. I have no problem with people being atheists, but I think we just, I think it's a very complicated conversation to have with people, because sometimes we're not really exactly sure what we do believe. I'm not talking about radical beliefs. I'm just talking about generally a sense of connection. Like Einstein, someone said, well, why do you believe in the universe? I mean, I'm like, well, that's silly, because there's blindingly obviously a universe, and we live in a planet that can change polarity. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's actually amazing.
When you think about it, the universe and the planet is amazing, and whatever. And I find it hard to believe that it was just a random evolution of chemicals. It'd be like dropping a scrap metal from a height and it landing and forming into a perfectly functioning car. So I personally think there's a creative force behind it, and if you want to call that God, whatever, source, if you like, the source of everything, fine. But I think what most people don't believe in nowadays, thank goodness, is the judgy old man on a cloud who doesn't like groups of people, probably gay people, and sends thunderbolts down and sends people to hell. That's kind of a childish way of looking at it, in my opinion. So people will go, well, yeah, I believe in something, just like you said. I can't articulate it exactly. They might call themselves spiritual but not religious, but 40% of the world is now in that section of the pie. Yes, spiritual.
I think that's what I thought. Well, we obviously weren't going to be a match because I'm just not interested in arguing.
That's just rude. You know what I mean? Sounds like you dodged a bullet, to be honest.
Yes, I was like, oh, forget it. So there we go. So that I don't know how we've wandered into spirituality, but we have, and I've got various other people. Imogen Edwards-Jones is right at the end. I haven't recorded that one yet, but I'm going to. And then Jenny Young. This is what's brought me onto it. Jenny Young is a professor in Wisconsin, and she has started up this thing called the burned haystack dating method. She started it up because she was on the apps, and she was just fed up, as we all are, men and women, and whoever we're looking for, going, oh my God, blah blah, not again. And she was like, there has to be a better way of doing it. So she started taking her. She's got a doctorate in critical discourse analysis, which means she's looking at rhetorical patterns and identifying them and giving them.
Whoa! Rhetorical patterns. Explain.
Yes. So, for example, let's say you're looking at a dating profile, and the man, I'm only looking at men's profiles, right? I'm heterosexual, so please forgive me, everyone else who's looking at women's profiles. I can only talk one way, right? Because I don't get to see the women ones. Although I could now say I'm interested in women and see the women ones as well. But there we go. When they say things like, one pattern is I'm a busy man. That's a pattern. I'm a busy man. So that means, you've got to work hard to get me. So that's bad. People that say things like, I'm looking for cuddles. Cuddles means, number one, it's ick, you're a grown man. Two, it means sex. So off. The other,
and a bit needy, I would say.
Needy. So there's also an I'm your mother. I want you to be my mother, which is, I just need looking after.
That's not a great turn
off. Then there's a white man, Buddhist thing of people that do a lot of, I've been on the journey, and she said there's nothing wrong with any of them, but she's just alerting to the rhetorical patterns, and it's really interesting. And then so people send profiles. Anyway, it's now got over 200,000 followers.
It sounds like it could cut out a lot of the grunt work of actually going on the
dating. The grunt work. And also she said she Googled dating, trying to find a needle in a haystack. How do you do that? And the answer came back, burn the haystack down.
Now I get it. Very good.
Yeah, burn the haystack down. So what it does is you can just, And the whole thing is with the algorithms, you need to block.
And also, once you find that needle, it will then be red hot.
Red hat needle. And also you need to block, because if you don't block, they just keep rematching you with the same people. So you need to block, so that the algorithm starts giving you people you're interested in. So she said, is it true that you might say no to some people that could be a yes? She said, yeah, but what you're doing is you're not spending so much time, you're empowering yourself, and you are going to be getting profiles that are probably more mild, with sort of men who kind of know how to behave and don't start sending you winky faces within 2 seconds. I mean, someone said, what's your idea of a perfect first date? And my idea of a perfect first date really is, I'd like to be wined and dined and taken out dancing, but only if I like the person. So I don't say that. So I was like, well, I'd like to go to a gallery and then maybe have a drink or a walk or something. And then,
nice.
And then they wrote,
nice. I think women like it when men plan dates as well, as long as they like the man.
He then wrote, and afterwards, winky face, right? So that's a block, because and afterwards, winky face is sex. I haven't met this person. I don't know who they are. So that's a block. And blocked in Bernhaystack method, that's a block. It's inappropriate, and too soon, and off. Yes. Another one is, can the man plan a date? Of course women do. Do you know how much we've planned in our lives? Yeah. It's exhausting. Yeah. It's exhausting.
I do plan dates for my girlfriend. Can I tell you about our first date since your relationship?
Yes.
It was a sort of an unofficial. Well, our first date was actually time we went out after that, when we didn't really know it was a date. Yes, but I invited her along. This is before our first proper date, which she didn't know was a date, to a comedy gig. Because I do stand up, as you know, and it was an open mic night where everyone's welcome. Also, that on paper they are, but when you got a room full of musicians and one comedian, and all the musicians want to do, and it was the elderly end of the range, and they probably just wanted to do their Nina Simone cover, and then pop back and cuddle up by themselves with a glass of Horlicks, and I get on stage and start singing filthy songs about sexual practices that I won't repeat here. Now the looks on their faces was funnier than what I was doing. And all I could see is her head bobbing up and down laughing. And she said, you had me there. You had me at that point. So humour as well, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've got to be able to laugh at somebody. You've got to be able to laugh. But you got to know each other quite slowly, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Deliberately.
Yes. So I think this is also something I tell people. So a lot of women and men say, oh, but I met this person and they're really lovely. And I tell me about it. They describe a lovely person. He was this, she was that. He was respectful. He paid for dinner. He walked me to my car. He was.
And I feel a butt coming on.
Yeah. And then at the end I go, great, that sounds great. And they go, yeah, but I'm not going to see him again. I'm like, okay, so this lovely man you just described to me, which has all the checklist of the things that you want in someone, you're not going to see him again. Why? And they'll say, because there wasn't any chemistry. And what I tell people, especially as we're older, is chemistry is not the thing to go on. You've got to build a relationship, because my chemistry is with sort of lunatics. I'm catnip for lunatics. And I like a man that's a bit on the woo side, right? But that's not healthy. It's very unhealthy. Right? It's not healthy to have that. So I've had to change my chemistry. So actually I'm attracted to good men who are solvent, who behave well, who are respectful, kind, decent.
But with a little bit of woo when necessary.
Little bit of woo when necessary. But the kind of mad, crazy, penniless artists that say, let's just go and no. Well, I've done that. And look where it ended up. You've got to change your patterning. And so that means if your chemistry is with the wrong people, then don't go on your chemistry, because chemistry builds. It builds.
True, but early days chemistry can feel pretty damn heady.
Yeah, but don't rule out someone because it isn't there. Listen, if you couldn't, if they look like a frog and you can't kiss them and you can never imagine kissing them, fine. But, if you've got a list of qualities that you want in someone and that person seems to have it, at least go on a second date and see.
Yeah, I like that. We've got a few minutes left. You did a special podcast episode on coercive control.
Yes, I did. I did with someone who wanted to be called Mary.
Yeah, so we call her Mary, which is obviously not her real name, and for obvious reasons. We're hearing more and more about coercive control. Hard to prove.
Yeah.
Recently become a crime. Horrible, absolutely horrible. If you want a summary of it, I guess you could say the film Gaslight, which is where you get the word gaslighting from.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's just horrible. And there seems to be an awful lot of it. And what struck me is the people that do it, they all seem to have swallowed the same pill. They all swallowed the same program. It's all exactly the same almost with all of them.
What do you mean by that?
The techniques they use to coercively control someone.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what's very interesting about this is that I have a media profile. I can't get anyone interested in an article on this, even when P. Diddy, even the P. Diddy trial, which has coercive control at the center of it, really. People don't. It's a subject people kind of go. They just don't really want to talk about it. It's not, so we kind of know about it, but then I think it's still quite hidden. People assume it's women being controlled by men, but not necessarily. Doesn't
not always.
I've done a webinar on it, and I had about 20 people on it, all anonymous, so unless they wanted to be, didn't want to be, because it's full of shame. And the thing about coercive control is that people end up feeling, well, how did I let someone come into my life who's behaved so badly? So I take people,
because it never starts that way. They start by love bombing you.
It starts with love bombing. And so the person that's being coercively controlled, they are, what tends to happen is this person is longing for something. They're longing for love. They're longing to be recognized. They're longing, there's a childhood wound. I'm talking generally, but they're generally true. There's childhood wounds where they're not seen, they're not heard, they don't feel loved, they don't feel.
So when they're love bombed, all those boxes are ticked. They feel validated, they feel wanted, they feel seen, and then slowly evolves into, I won't say evolves, that implies moving forward, it changes into dependence, and dependence on someone then can lead to control, just little bit by little bit, and then it can go really extreme. It's horrible. Anyway, over to you.
The thing is that the initial stages of love bombing, which can go on for however long it goes on for, is that the person who's been love bombed feels the best they've ever felt. That's why I'm question marking the heady bit, right? There's a history of coercive control. Feeling heady, that's almost like a wake-up call, which is, oh, hang on, am I is this actually right, or is this actually not good? But when we fall in love, we lose our minds a bit. That's the glorious part of love. Of course we do. It's a drug. All sorts of stuff happens in our bodies. All sorts of dopamine and serotonin, and Shakespeare writes about it really. Midsummer Night's Dream is a whole thing really about how nutty crazy love is. But if you're this sort of, and so a lot of people that seem strong and seem together, like especially women that have it all dialed in, underneath it all, there's a little girl who's a sad little girl that desperately wants love and support and to be made to feel like this beautiful princess in someone's life.
And deserves it, but just not from that person.
But the man, somehow, somewhere on the line, the man, whether it's deliberate or not, and I won't talk about that now, picks that up and comes in as basically the good man. And this person feels so loved that they feel the best they've ever felt. So when things start going wrong, the compulsion is to try and go back to that first bit. So even when it becomes overwhelmingly obvious that this person,
and they will work harder to try and please that person get back there, when that person could never be pleased in the first place, because that was never the freaking agenda, right?
Yeah, and we're in the realm of addiction. We're really in the realm of addiction.
Brian Kingsford comments on this. And he's always got some good comments, has our Brian. Yes. I feel people won't talk about it because they're frightened of admitting they're being controlled or are controlling themselves.
Yes.
I imagine he means they're controlling themselves towards others, not controlling themselves by that. Yeah, yes. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, so it's a topic that's very difficult for people to talk about. I think that's absolutely right. But it's really important that we do start talking about, because eventually, by the time you get to stage 6, when, let's say, you have managed to get out of that controlling relationship, really nasty things can happen. It's when people take crossbows to your house. You know, it's when people stalk you, hit you, abuse your family, abuse your children. And we don't have enough resources. Women's aid is, I'm talking women to men. Please forgive me, men, there, because I also know it happens to men too. And I'm sorry, I don't want it just to be a
You've heard of the Freedom Project, I'm sure, Pat Craven.
Yeah.
My girlfriend does a lot of work at a local women's centre Sutton Women's Centre, and they do amazing work. One of which is offering this program. And my girlfriend, and I agree with her, says that every man, woman and child should read that book and do that course, because it would show the red flags earlier on.
But you know, the problem is that even, I mean, I've had personal experience with this. Okay, so the red flags are waving, but I'm just ignoring them. Yeah. So this is where it gets very complex. I wouldn't do that now because I've grown up, and also I've done a lot of therapy. But it also depends on where your childhood. Okay, so so the issue with all this is it's a lot of personal work, you know. And I'm in the long term, I'm hoping to set up with other people some place where people can go, or at least online, and offer some help psychologically, but also legally, because people don't know where to go, and they do need somewhere to go to get, because you need a lot of support to leave these relationships. Why people end up back in them. They end up back in them all the time, and then people give up on them because, you know, and they think everyone thinks I'm an idiot. You know, I can't, so they don't tell anyone. You know, it took me a long time to get out of my relationship, and I kept going back. I kept going back because there's something.
And it's because of the shame, and there is shame. There rightly is shame, but it's not yours. It belongs to the perpetrator. Yes.
But you feel ashamed because you think, how can I have been such an idiot? And there's a grandiosity about it all. There's a sort of intensity about it where it's like, only we love each other. It's mad. It's a madness. It's literally like being in a mad place. I look back at it now and I think, oh my God, you know, but so I have a lot of empathy for people that are stuck in these situations, because it's difficult. And I'm trying to talk about that more and help people through that.
It's been wonderful talking to you again.
Oh, thank you for inviting me back. I've just gassed on.
You are welcome here anytime, and I'm sure we will invite you back again soon. But the podcast begins. It's the episode 1 next week, Wednesday, June the 18th, with Sarah Vine.
Yes.
And how not to be a political wife. She was formerly married to Michael Gove. Fascinating episode, and we've talked about it an awful lot on the show. It's a great podcast, and I certainly would.
You are my producer. So
I am, yes. Shameless plug. I edit podcasts and get them out there to the world. And
and it's brilliant. We have a great working relationship. And you've been.
We do. Yes. Indeed, we do. It's a privilege and a pleasure to.
And I just want to know, every time I think, oh my God, I can't find any more guests, or I'm knackered and exhausted, someone appears. You know, I go to the Bachelor Club and Erica's there. So as long as people keep appearing and people keep listening, please, I'll carry on going.
Brilliant. Lucy Cavendish, where can people find you if they want to check out your
www.lucycavendishlovecoach.com.
Lucy Cavendish Love Coach.
I think I'm Lucy Cavendish 49 or something on Insta. Don't ask me why. Lucy.Cavendish 49. Mainly the website. I'm on Facebook. I've got.
I'll tell you what, I'm just going to pop that on the screen. One moment. LucyCavendishLoveCoach.com.
Yeah, www.lucycavendishlovecoach.com. That's probably the easiest place to find me. And there's lots of ebooks, and there's loads of stuff on the website. And all links to the podcasts are on there, but they are on Spotify. And listen to them and see what you think. I mean,
it's all over the place. It's on Apple. If you just type it in,
just have a listen and get in touch with me. Let me know what you think. I love to engage with people. So I'm really happy to hear what people think of it. I mean, I think people really enjoy them.
Yeah, I think they do too, and the figures would bear that out.
I just need hundreds of thousands to I don't know.
Well, when people listening to this show listen to it, and I'm sure they will, give it a share, folks. Amanda Smith, very interesting. Lucy is good, indeed she is.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Best guests here for you, Lucy Cavendish. all the very best of everything to you, and speak to you soon. Thank you for being on.
Soon. Thanks, Neil. Take care. Bye.
Good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.